In the distant future, Earth is governed by a militaristic regime called the Global Federation of Earth. After the Galactic War veterans ousted democracy, this ruling power encourages the people to join the mobile infantry, promising citizenship in return for their federal service. I'm doing my part. You know it. Citizenship grants rights like voting and procreation that are withheld from ordinary civilians. It turns out that humanity is now at tense conflict with a race of highly evolved insectoid creatures, the arachnids, or bugs. One of the planets inhabited by these creatures, Klendathu, hurls countless meteorites towards Earth. As a result, the military force intends to eliminate Klendathu in order to protect humanity. The scene then cuts to 1 year earlier, and we are introduced to a high school student, Johnny Rico, who is seen attending a class of Lieutenant Rassak. As the teacher talks about democracy's failure, Johnny is busy flirting with his girlfriend, Carmen Ibanez. After class, the couple goes to check their test results. Carmen seems to have scored a high mark, while Johnny fails because he's an idiot. Just then, he is approached by his best friend Carl, who asks about the relationship with Carmen. He reveals that a girl named Dizzy also likes him, but he wants to stay with Carmen. Afterwards, the students are assigned to dissect some large arachnids in their biology class. The teacher implores that these creatures are superior to humans for their rapid reproduction and selfless instinct. Johnny nonchalantly carves open and pulls out the creature's innards, which only causes Carmen to feel uneasy and throw up in disgust. After school, Johnny goes to Carl's house to learn psychic abilities. It turns out the latter has been practicing them to become a soldier. As the two are chatting, Carl's pet disturbs them, so he uses his ability to send it away. He, however, claims that he hasn't figured out how to do such manipulation on humans yet. The next day, Carmen cheers for Johnny during a rugby match. At one point, he evades an opponent, Xander, leading him to score a touchdown while the latter crashes into the audience. Xander gets up with the help of Carmen and is immediately smitten by her. The two have a brief chit-chat when he mentions going to Fleet Academy. This excites Carmen since she aims to attend the academy as well. Their conversation is witnessed by Johnny, causing him to be jealous. He then vents his anger on the game, ultimately securing a victory. Later, at home, Johnny's father confronts him about signing up for federal service, which involves 2 years of sacrifice and uncertain survival. He suggests that Johnny attend Harvard University instead, but the boy remains resolute.
I'm too stupid for that, Dad.
It appears that Carmen and Carl are enlisting in the military to attain citizenship, which is why Johnny wants to do the same. However, his low grades prevent him from joining her in flight school, placing him in the mobile infantry instead, while Carl opts for military intelligence. All three of them then sign for the academy and vow to remain friends despite being light years away. The very next day, Johnny meets Carmen at the airport as she's leaving for her training. He confesses his love for her, but she hesitates to respond. Just then, her flight is announced, so she departs after kissing him one last time. A few days later, Johnny also heads for his military training, where he and the rest of the new recruits are drilled by the brutal career sergeant Zim. Shortly after, Dizzy also joins them, having requested transfer to Johnny's unit. This is because she has a massive crush on him.
I don't like bugs, Johnny, but I like your balls.
During lunch, she tries to talk to Johnny, but he tells her not to tag along with them. She denies joining the unit because of him, but he doesn't believe her. Later, while taking a group shower, a fellow unit member, Kitten, asks everyone for the reason why they joined here. A guy named Breckenridge claims that he wants to avoid becoming a farmer, unlike his parents, while a young woman, Diana, wants to enter politics. When it's Johnny's turn, Dizzy intervenes and claims that he's here for his love. On the other hand, Carmen enthusiastically proceeds with her training and seems to be going very well. At first, she's assigned to piloting a Corvette transport ship, which she handles very easily. After this, she's transferred to Fleet Battle Station, Ticonderoga, where she learns that her instructor is none other than Xander. As Johnny's training begins, he demonstrates his exceptional athletic prowess that eventually earns him a promotion to squad leader. One evening, the entire unit is resting in their compartment when Johnny receives a video message from Carmen. She informs him that her training is going really well, and she's very happy with it. However, she also has bad news. She reveals her decision to end her relationship with him due to their diverging career paths, also citing that she needs to focus on her career. aka Xander. She apologizes for the same and asks him to write back so that they can remain friends. This leaves Johnny devastated because she was the reason why he enlisted himself in the military. Overhearing this, his batchmate Ace tries to comfort him, saying that he got his promotion on his own. As days pass by, Carmen continues training with Xander and quickly acquires proficiency in various flight-related skills. At one point, she proves herself a skilled pilot when she changes their navigation course to a more efficient route. Due to this, she's officially invited to be a part of the captain crew, rather than remaining a trainee. Xander congratulates her for this achievement and notes that they're a good team. Their conversation is abruptly interrupted when they detect a gravitational shift caused by an approaching asteroid. In a quick move, Carmen skillfully maneuvers the ship beneath the asteroid, managing to avoid a collision with only minor damage. This earns her praise from the captain, which makes her happy. One day, during a training session, Johnny leads his squad into a combat situation using live ammunition. Amidst this, Breckenridge complains that his helmet is malfunctioning, so Johnny removes it to check. At the same time, Diana trips when she gets hit by a laser. This causes her to accidentally fire towards Breckenridge, killing him on the spot. As a consequence of Johnny's irresponsible action, he's demoted from squad leader and publicly flogged in accordance with military law. Nothing like a good flogging. Diana, overwhelmed by guilt, decides to leave the military. These events leave Johnny disheartened, and after some deliberation, he also decides to quit for good. While packing his belongings, he receives a video call from his parents, who are happy to welcome him back home. Suddenly, he notices his parents' house go dark before the call ends. A short while later, all the soldiers watch the news about a meteor from Klendathu hitting Earth, causing widespread devastation and claiming millions of lives. Johnny and Dizzy are shocked to learn that their hometown has been completely wiped out. Now that there's no reason left for Johnny to return home, he requests his commanding officer to rescind his resignation. In response, Zim tears up the resignation form, accepting him back into the squad. As a result of this sneak attack, Earth declares war against the Arachnids. In the next scene, the military infantry arrives at Ticonderoga, where Johnny reunites with Carmen. She wastes no time and explains that their breakup was for the best, since they're at war. Right then, Xander steps in, and Carmen shares that they're in a flight team together. Misinterpreting this as the reason for their breakup, Johnny opts to walk away. However, he is provoked when Xander insults the infantry. He then gets into a fight with the douchebag, disregarding his higher rank. However, the fellow bathmates quickly separate them before their commanding officer notices. The following day, an invasion force is dispatched to Klendathu. While en route, Carmen detects plasma beams, which her captain disregards as harmless. However, these beams prove destructive, exploding several infantry-carrying ships. Despite the losses, the surviving ships manage to land on Klendathu. The soldiers then rush for an attack and begin firing towards the gigantic bugs that release the plasma beams. For the first few minutes, the soldiers are able to kill several bugs with their rifles and missiles. However, they're eventually ambushed by a swarm of bugs, forcing a retreat on the general's orders. In the chaos, the commanding officer is captured and torn in half, while Kitten's body is thrown into Johnny. Regardless, he continues firing until a bug stabs him in his leg. Realizing that they can't overpower the Arachnid's defense, the surviving soldiers get back to the spaceship and return to Ticonderoga. After the battle, the death toll seems to have reached 100,000. Carmen checks the list of the dead soldiers and finds Johnny's name, which breaks her down into tears. Unbeknownst to her, he is in the care of the medical squad, receiving treatment for his injuries. Days later, the fully recovered Johnny, Dizzy, and Ace join a new unit called the Roughnecks, who are recognized for their high bug kill count. When Ace jokes about their lieutenant, a corporal named Birdie punches him, claiming that he was the one who saved their lives. Soon, Johnny discovers that their lieutenant is none other than Razak. He's a veteran of the First Bug War several years earlier, who has been brought out of retirement to lead the group. Razak announces his plan to carry out the second attack, emphasizing a foolproof strategy this time. The following day, the Roughnecks initiate their attack by dropping a series of bombs over an area of the bug's planet, incinerating numerous arachnids. After After this, the military unit advances for a ground assault, eliminating the surviving arachnids with gunfire. Johnny's squad directs a missile into a bug hole, exterminating all of its inhabitants. The commotion results in a gigantic tanker bug emerging from the ground. It shoots burning acid towards the soldiers, unfortunately melting Birdie's right arm. In a courageous move, Johnny climbs a cliff, leaps onto the tanker bug, and begins firing. Upon creating a hole in its back, he drops a grenade inside, causing the bug to explode. Last time I saw this, I was 12, but I'm pretty sure it was freaking awesome. Impressed by Johnny's valor, the lieutenant promotes him to corporal and designates Dizzy as a squad manager. Later that evening, Razak treats the troops with beers and entertainment kits to celebrate their first success. Amidst this, Dizzy invites Johnny to dance, but he turns her down. Seeing this, Razak advises him not to pass up on the good things in life. Johnny gives it a thought and goes to dance with her. Their moment eventually turns romantic, and they end up making love in a tent. Razak's not just a pilot, he's also a fiery hot wingman. The following day, the Roughnecks are assigned to investigate an outpost on planet P. While marching through a rough and rocky canyon, Razak's communications sergeant is carried off by a winged flyer bug. But before it can stab him, the lieutenant shoots the sergeant, sparing him a painful death. He announces that he'd expect anyone in the unit to do the same for him as well. After this, Johnny gets another field promotion to sergeant and assumes command of the squad. Upon arriving at the outpost, they discover that the place has already been attacked. They also find a soldier with a hole in his skull, revealing that the bugs have sucked out his brains. Shortly after, they are ambushed by thousands of warrior bugs, supported by tanker and flyer bugs. The troops open fire, but they are soon outnumbered. Johnny rushes to the communication tent and requests for pickup. While the ship is on the way, Razak orders a retreat for evacuation. Minutes later, the ship and Xander open the door, ordering everyone to get inside. During this, Razak is ambushed from beneath the ground by a tanker bug that chews off his legs. Knowing that he won't survive, he orders Johnny to shoot him, which the latter reluctantly does. Following this, Dizzy throws a grenade into the tanker bug's mouth, exploding it to death. However, another bug appears and stabs her with its big pointed stinger. Johnny and Ace manage to shoot down the bug before carrying Dizzy onto the ship. On their way back to the base, Dizzy passes away in Johnny's arms, leaving him in tears. Meanwhile, Xander goes to the cockpit and informs Carmen that her ex-boyfriend is still alive. This shocks her, but she manages to conceal her emotions. After Dizzy's funeral on a starship, Johnny and Carmen are joined by Carl, now a high-ranking colonel in military intelligence. He reveals that the Roughnecks were used as bait to test a theory, initially infuriating Johnny. However, the theory has proven correct: the existence of a brain bug that controls all arachnids. Carl now appoints Johnny as the leader of the Roughnecks, promoting him to lieutenant and instructing him to return to planet P to capture the brain bug. While heading to planet P the following day, Carmen's ship is torn in half by a plasma beam. In a frantic attempt to survive, they rush into mini space pods to abandon the ship. Tragically, many crew members are pulled out into space, resulting in their immediate demise. Furthermore, the captain also gets fatally crushed under a door. Xander and Carmen somehow manage to reach the pod and barely escape before their ship is completely destroyed. Following this, they crash land deep inside the bug nest, several meters underground. They then contact Johnny via radio, revealing their location. Hearing this, the lieutenant directs his squad to proceed with their mission, while he, Ace, and their squad mate Watkins aim to rescue the stranded pilots. However, it's too late, as the two are captured by the arachnids, one being stabbed in the shoulder while the other in the leg. A short while later, the duo is approached by the brain bug that soon stabs Xander in his skull and sucks out his brain. When this leader bug comes for Carmen, she cuts off its appendage, causing it great pain. Just then, Johnny and his team arrive at the scene, holding a nuclear bomb that momentarily temporarily scares the aliens into backing away. Soon after, the brain bug escapes. While the arachnids launch an attack on them, the soldiers open fire, but Watkins gets sliced across the body during this commotion. Knowing that he won't make it, he takes the nuclear bomb and decides to sacrifice his life, urging the rest of them to run. Once the arachnids are close enough and the others have escaped, he triggers the bomb, blowing up his own ass as well as the bugs. Upon reaching the surface, they discover that the mobile infantry, led by Sergeant Zim, has captured the brain bug. Carl uses his psychic ability to read the brain bug's mind and announces that it's afraid of his captors, bringing great joy to everyone for their success. With the brain bug in custody, military intelligence begins studying it to understand how to defeat its entire race. On the other hand, Carmen is now promoted to captain, leading her own ship, while Johnny continues to lead the Roughnecks in their mission to eradicate the threat completely. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching. Hi, Mystery Recaps here. Today I'm going to explain a comedy crime movie called The Happy Time Murders. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The movie takes place in a universe where puppets coexist with humans. However, they are regarded as second-class citizens and have almost no real rights in the human world. Also, I guess puppeteers are criminals. We are then introduced to our protagonist, Phil, who is one such puppet. He was the first and only puppet to join the police force, but was fired after making a significant blunder on the job. He now works as a private detective and has hired a human secretary named Bubbles. One day, Phil is visited by a client named Sandra White, who's a gorgeous puppet. The woman reveals that she is a nymphomaniac, but doesn't want her friends and family to know. However, someone has discovered her secret and is blackmailing her into paying $350,000 in exchange for their silence. Sandra doesn't have that kind of money, so she wants Phil to handle the situation for her. Next, she hands him the anonymous letter from the blackmailer, as well as some advance payment. Sandra then tries to flirt with him, but Phil ignores her and remains professional. After she leaves, he looks at the anonymous letter and notices the cutout letter P, which seems familiar to him. He recalls seeing the same letter in a pornographic magazine store that belongs to his friend Vinny. Shortly after, Phil goes to the store, where he notices Vinny shooting adult films featuring an octopus and a cow. A Japan-America collaboration. Phil is disgusted by all of this and asks Vinny for some magazines so he can compare the fonts to the anonymous letter. Upon reviewing it, he discovers that the font matches one of the magazines, and he's certain that the blackmailer is one of Vinny's clients. Phil then requests to look for a list of clients, so Vinny directs him to go to the back room where his office is located. On the way, Phil meets an old friend named Bumbly Pants, who is a puppet bunny. He used to star in the popular 90s sitcom The Happy Time Gang, but now just hangs out at adult stores. Therefore, Bumbly is visibly embarrassed to see his old friend in such a place. He tries his best to hide his porn addiction and even refuses to acknowledge that he's Bumbly Pants. Later, while Phil is going through the records, a mysterious person dressed in a black suit storms into the store with a gun. He tries to murder Bumbly Pants, but Vinny quickly responds and draws his own gun. Unfortunately, the assailant shoots Vinny to death and blows off the heads of both the octopus and the cow. He then brutally murders Bumbly before finally fleeing the store. During all this time, Phil remains in the office and is unaware of the chaos since loud music is drowning out the gunshots. Moments later, Phil steps outside and is horrified to see the store in complete disarray with everyone dead. The cops soon arrive and Phil meets Connie Edwards, a well-known detective who was once his partner in the police force. They had a bitter falling out and are still unable to tolerate each other. Connie would love to arrest Phil because he is the only one to survive the shootout, which seems highly suspicious. However, Phil's former boss, Lieutenant Banning, doesn't believe he could do such a thing and lets him go. Following this, Phil meets up with his brother Larry, an actor who once appeared alongside Bumbly Pants in the Happy Time Gang. The brothers catch up on their lives and Phil informs him of Bumbly Pants' tragic death. However, the latter doesn't seem to care about such matters and says that it was Bumbly Pants' dream of dying in a porn store. In the evening, we see Phil drinking alone, reflecting on his glory days when he was the best cop in the city. Just then, Bubbles arrives and invites him to spend the evening together, but he refuses. It turns out that the woman has feelings for him, but Phil is completely oblivious to her affection. Elsewhere, we see Larry having fun in a hot tub with his human girlfriend. He shows her old recordings from the rap party of the Happy Time Gang, where Connie and Phil are also featured. Larry then points out a human actress named Jenny, with whom his brother was in a relationship back then. Moments later, Larry's girlfriend goes to grab some drinks, leaving him alone in the tub. At this moment, someone releases 3 vicious dogs into the house, which immediately tear Larry to pieces. His girlfriend is horrified to see this and tries desperately to chase the dogs away, but to no avail. Larry is nothing more than fluff. In the following scene, Phil arrives at the crime scene and is devastated by the loss of his brother. He then notices Connie again, who starts making insensitive comments about Larry's death. This sparks a fight between the two, during which they fall into the hot tub, and Connie ends up biting Phil's private parts. After this altercation, they are both scolded by Lieutenant Banning, who is frustrated by their constant bickering. He then says that he wants to hire Phil as a consultant to help solve the string of murders, but Phil must team up with Connie. Upon hearing this, both of them are unhappy about it, but they have no choice but to obey orders. Following this, the duo reluctantly begins their investigation, and Phil suspects that someone is intentionally targeting the former members of the Happy Time Gang. He believes that the killer came specifically for Bumbly Pants at the porn store, and the rest were simply caught at the wrong time. During their investigation, the duo meets a man named Ronovan, who is the producer of the show. They ask him about the dead actors and whether he knows anything about it. However, Ronovan appears to be prejudiced against puppets and refuses to cooperate. This enrages Phil so much that he knocks him out with a metal ball and steals some important documents regarding the show. Later, when Phil and Connie review the documents, they discover that the 7 main actors are supposed to receive $10 million in royalties. In the case of an actor's death, it goes to the spouse, and if there is no spouse, the deceased's share is divided among the remaining actors. The duo then understands that the killer must be one of the actors, who wants to receive a larger share of the royalty. With this information, they go to visit another actor named Lyle, who is now a drug lord. The two arrive at an underground ghetto, but the puppets there are enraged to see Connie because humans are not permitted in this area. Phil then informs them a little secret about Connie. After being injured on the job once, she had a liver transplant from a puppet. To verify this, Lyle offers her a puppet drug that can put a person into a diabetic coma if they take it. Connie takes the drug without hesitation, and surprisingly, it has the same effect on her as it does on a puppet. Following this, Phil and Lyle go outside for a private conversation, while Connie remains behind to play poker with the puppets. However, they begin making sexist comments towards her, and also treat a female employee very badly, which infuriates Connie. Outside, Lyle and Phil are discussing the actor's deaths when a car suddenly approaches them. Lyle grabs his gun and heads towards the vehicle, but he's suddenly shot and killed. His henchmen retaliate and shoot back at the car, but they are killed as well. Phil tries to get after the vehicle, but it eventually drives away. Meanwhile, inside, Connie beats up the sexist men and makes them apologize for mistreating women. If you're looking for a message about female empowerment, look no further than the puppet porno movie. The next day, Phil arrives at his office to find Sandra waiting for him. She reveals that she has received another threat and would like Phil to resolve the situation. With all the recent murders, he has completely forgotten about her case. So, Sandra decides to reignite his enthusiasm and begins to seduce him. Phil is hesitant at first, but when she continues to insist, he eventually succumbs to his desires. While they are loudly making love in the office, outside, Lieutenant Banning arrives with Agent Campbell from the FBI. After Sandra leaves, the officers question Phil about his incompetence in solving the murder cases. They're also worried that every time a murder happens, he is somehow always at the scene. Phil claims that he has nothing to do with the murders, but the cops don't believe him. Worried that he will be arrested, he then makes an excuse and jumps through his office window to escape. Next, Phil goes to meet his ex-girlfriend Jenny, who is the only human member of the show. However, she isn't doing very well now and works at a strip club. She seems to be quite casual about the deaths of her coworkers, so Phil urges her to take things more seriously, but Jenny admits that she needs to make a living and cannot stay cooped up forever. The two then reminisce about their relationship relationship, and Jenny admits that she really loved him back then. After a brief emotional conversation, they head outside and say their goodbyes. However, as soon as Jenny gets into her car, it unexpectedly explodes, leaving Phil in complete shock. Moments later, the police arrive at the scene, and Phil realizes he won't be able to escape this time. He thus runs away from there and heads to Connie's house to hide from the cops. Phil notices her sleeping peacefully and looks at some old framed pictures of them together. The scene then flashes back to 12 years ago, where we see a robber holding Connie at gunpoint. Phil tried to shoot the criminal but missed, and the bullet deflected into a random puppet passerby who was with his little daughter. Connie was also shot by the robber, but she was somehow able to kill him. In the aftermath, Phil rushed her to the puppet hospital, where she received liver surgery, but he was chastised by everyone for his incompetence and was eventually fired from his job. In the present, Connie and Phil discover that another member of the Happy Time gang was found dead this morning. He apparently jumped and drowned in the ocean after being high on drugs. The duo realizes that 5 members are dead, leaving only 2 remaining actors, Ezra and Kara. It turns out that the 2 are actually cousins, but they are now married and have children. The duo then decides to visit them, hoping that this time they will be able to catch the murderer. In the following scene, they arrive at the cousins' home, which is located in the middle of the desert. They notice the kids in one room, who are deformed and screaming wildly in front of a mirror. The duo then heads to another room, where they shockingly find Ezra and Kara dead in their beds. There is no sign of a killer anywhere, which leaves the 2 frustrated. However, just as they are about to leave the house, Agent Campbell shows up with his team and arrests Phil for the murders. The scene then cuts to the police station, where we see Sandra testifying against Phil in front of Campbell. It turns out that she was married to Jenny, and she reveals that she and Phil have been having an affair for months. Sandra then claims that Phil only wanted to get rid of Jenny so he could have Sandra to himself, but he ended up killing all the other actors to make it look like a part of a bigger scheme. A stunned Phil denies the accusations, but Campbell doesn't believe him since they saw the 2 making love just days ago. This causes Connie to lose her temper and get into a fight with Campbell, which results in her being suspended from her job. Later that night, when an upset Connie returns home, she discovers Bubbles waiting for her. The 2 have an emotional conversation where they express their sadness about how Phil is being framed for something he didn't do. Determined to save him, they team up and head to Sandra's apartment, hoping to find some evidence against her. They break into the house and discover a secret room filled with evidence of how Sandra killed all the actors. In a shocking twist, Connie recognizes that Sandra is the same girl whose father was accidentally killed by Phil 12 years ago. They then decide to leave with the evidence, but Sandra has set a booby trap, which causes the entire place to burn down. All the evidence is destroyed, but fortunately, the 2 women manage to escape safely. The next day, Connie visits Phil in jail and informs him of everything she discovered. Knowing she can't get him out through conventional means, she shoots him in the arm. Following this, Connie begins to scream, claiming she accidentally shot Phil, and he's soon taken away in an ambulance. On the way, Connie knocks out the driver and the orderly who is treating Phil's wound. The 2 then steal the ambulance and head to the airport, since Sandra is planning to leave the country. When they arrive at the location, Phil handcuffs Connie to the steering wheel to ensure that she doesn't put herself in danger again. He then goes to confront Sandra alone and eventually finds her. He apologizes for what happened to her father and explains how he deals with the regret every day. When Phil asks why she killed all those actors, Sandra reveals that she simply wanted to see him suffer. At this moment, Jenny, who turns out to be alive, shows up and reveals that she has been plotting with Sandra all along. Now that all the actors are dead, they're wealthy from the profits of the show. Next, Sandra asks Jenny to shoot Phil, but the woman is hesitant because she still has a soft spot for her ex-lover. Jenny suggests that they leave instead, but an enraged Sandra knocks out her own wife. Then, some of Sandra's bodyguards grab Phil and throw him into the plane's turbines. It seems that it's almost over for him, but at the last moment, Connie shows up. She swiftly knocks out all the bodyguards and also releases her partner. But moments later, she's grabbed by Sandra, who holds her at gunpoint in the same position as 12 years ago. Connie asks Phil to shoot her, but Sandra says he won't because he is a loser who can't do anything right. Phil then recalls his past mistake and becomes nervous, but he somehow pulls the trigger with determination. Fortunately, he doesn't miss this time and fatally shoots Sandra in the head. In the final scene, several officers arrive at the scene, and Banning congratulates Connie and Phil on successfully solving the case. He lifts Connie's suspension and also reinstates Phil's old job, which makes the puppet very happy. Moments later, Bubbles arrives to check on her boss, and he finally realizes that she has feelings feelings for him. The movie concludes with Phil asking if she wants to go out with him, to which she gladly agrees. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching. The premise of the movie is set in an advanced futuristic world. Virtual reality has become indistinguishable from the real world thanks to numerous modernized technologies. A big tech company organizes an exclusive virtual reality game, but unknown to the public, whatever happens in the game also happens in the real world, which means if the player dies in the game, he does in the real world as well. One morning, 8 civilians from New York City are called and are provided a chance to win $100,000, given that they agree to beta test a new virtual reality game. Even though the offer is random and sketchy, all 8 of them decide to take it and arrive at the given address. Upon meeting each other, they find out that they are all established gamers. The organizer of the game welcomes them through a one-way announcement to minimize the player's interaction with other humans. They are told to sign a contract before getting dressed in their armor. The players are only allowed to use each other's gaming names and keep personal interaction to a minimum. They wear motion suits before getting scanned and putting on their armor. It connects with their suit and becomes one with the player. The armor consists of 54 motion sensors that will help the players function properly in the virtual world. They are designed to let the players experience the closest possible experience to modern warfare. Everyone gets dressed immediately except for one player named Terrorist. He is hesitant because of his name, which was supposed to be ironic. He is also doubtful of the technology they're testing and thinks it might be harmful. The others ask him to go back home, but the doors to the room don't open. It turns out that the game cannot start without all players joining. Eventually, Terrorist is convinced to join the others. The armor starts and the room changes completely. The white modern interior is replaced with the rustic walls of an abandoned building. The players are shaken because it is almost like they teleported to some other place. Not just the wall, but their clothes also change into army uniforms, and their tattoos and any scarring on their body vanish. One player tries touching the beer bottles lying around, but his hand goes through them. This game sucks. Another guy opens his helmet to see where he is, and sure enough, he is still in the same room. Putting the helmet back on, he joins the other in front of the window. Outside, a chopper is fighting battles in the middle of a destroyed city. A player named Reaper is the most excited out of everyone. He has been dreaming of getting to experience this level of virtual reality every day. His excitement paints him as a fool in front of everyone, but he doesn't seem to care. That's a true gamer. As they wonder what they should do next, the army captain appears and orders them to stand close. Everyone is intimidated by the man, but then they realize he is not real. When they take their helmets off, they are back in the White Room with no captain around. The players, amazed by the technology, decide to continue to explore it. They grab a gun each and test firing at the bottles. Seeing the players get irresponsible with the guns, the captain shoots a guy, showing them that their body armor is destroyed with a single hit. He warns them not to get hit a second time, and the players assume they will get eliminated if they do. The captain explains that their building has been overrun by a group of highly trained terrorists. The players' aim is to fight them and make it to the ground floor. They are each given a medikit, which will help them if they get hurt. The game starts on the 25th floor, and the players start looking around. Initially, they are excited and not so careful, but it is until a terrorist suddenly appears in front of them. Shooter quickly dodges and kills the man, revealing that he is a trained soldier. Everyone else feels relieved to have someone like him in the group. They are also a lot more careful after this. The win takes them to level 24, which has a high voltage threat involved. They get a bunch of new weapons because as the levels decrease, the dangers increase. A man named Alta gets the first kill and is thrilled to see blood on the floor. He grows more violent with each shot and kills many opponents. Reaper gets the least kills and is almost shot by a terrorist before Shooter saves him. However, in the process, Shooter gets shot and loses his armor. A girl named Taylor reveals that she came to her friend's place and wasn't supposed to be in the game. She panics and breaks into tears, while another girl named Mustang comforts her. Suddenly, the 5th member of the group, Cox, gets shot twice. He drops to the ground and cries in pain. Everyone else is confused because the suit is not supposed to make them feel pain. Even when Cox takes off his helmet, the pain won't go away. He is immediately injected with the medikit, which finally helps him with the pain. He is now sure that the game is not what they think it is. The first gunshot might not do them any harm, but the second one will definitely kill them. Some of them think that they are in a reality show, but none want to continue playing. Terrorist tries taking his helmet off before realizing that he is stuck in a panic, Alta starts blaming Shooter for being in on the death game. Shooter, in turn, storms off to another room. What the players do not know is that the next level game has already started, which means the place is swarming with terrorists. Before Shooter knows it, he is shot in the back. Outside, the other players are also attacked, but they manage to dodge in time. Taylor tries running down to a lower level, but the game stops her because they aren't allowed to go down before they complete the previous level. Reaper thinks fast and throws a grenade at the enemy, killing them at once. When everything goes silent, they return to Shooter and find him dead in the hallway. This confirms that a player's death is possible and makes everyone nervous. They have to proceed to the next level soon, but Terrorist suggests they try taking their helmets off first. A member named Da Chief warns them to stop, but Cox and Terrorist don't listen. They forcefully try taking their helmets off, which causes the virtual captain to get mad at them. He pushes Terrorist to the ground and kicks him repeatedly, commanding him to never try breaking the rules again. The group finally accepts that the only way to get out alive is by winning the game. They go down 2 more floors and reach the 20th. The challenge is to use knives at this level because the place has had a gas leak, and any gunshot will blow the entire thing up. The first few seconds into the game, the Chief is almost killed before Alta saves him. He could do anything to survive and is the most dangerous out of all of them. Following his steps, the group does great in the next few levels. However, they also lose many medikits through the process. At one point, Mustang is left with the last kit, but both Reaper and Cox are hurt. As she deliberates who she should save, Terrorist comes to their aid and saves Cox with his last medikits. As they pass a few more levels, they stop to rest. The game is getting harder, and they are running out of medikits rapidly. Terrorist starts banging a glass wall, trying to get out of the building. He is successful to some level, but is stopped by the virtual captain. He beats up Terrorist and breaks his leg, with a bone protruding out of his leg. Terrorist is now a burden to the group. Alta suggests they leave him, but the others want to take him along. In the end, Terrorist hides under a table and asks everyone else to continue the game. He slowly loses consciousness and dies sometime later. In the next level, the group struggles the most because they are outnumbered by the terrorists. Taylor, who hasn't had a single kill, hides in a room the entire time the others fight, but by the end of the level, she kills a man and gets ready to kill some more. When they complete the level, the group decides to rest for a while. As they chat about their lives outside of the game, Cox realizes that all of them have no close family or friends. Reaper only has a grandmother who has Alzheimer's. Mustang's family lives abroad. The Chief is an orphan. Taylor wasn't even supposed to be here, and Alta is divorced. If any of them die and never return home, no one would care. They are all true gamers. This might mean that the organizer of the game selected them, hoping to see them die. The information fuels their anger, getting them ready for the next round. Upon reaching the next level, they find the captain beating up an enemy prisoner. He reveals that there is a bomb wired through the foundation of the building, and only the prisoner knows the code to turn it off. Their next task is to get the code out of the prisoner. The task is easier than the rest, hence the group gets to work immediately. The Chief pushes buttons that electrocute the prisoner. When he is at his lowest, he whispers that the code is Pushkin. As soon as Reaper puts the code in, the lights go off. When they turn back on, a voice warns them that the explosive has been triggered, and in the next 30 minutes, the entire building will blow up. Alta panics and starts blaming Reaper for putting in the wrong code. The only way to stop the explosion is by shutting it down manually when they reach the parking lot, which means they only have 30 minutes to go down the next 9 floors. Taylor kills the man who gave them the wrong password before asking everyone to hurry up. Suddenly, Alta loses his mind and starts hitting Reaper out of frustration. He only stops when the captain gives them an advantage by opening up the elevator for them. It stops on the 5th floor, but closes before Alta and Reaper can get out. They are nervous at first, but realize that the elevator is taking them further down. They eventually get off on the 3rd floor when only 25 minutes are left before detonation. Reaper suggests they wait until others make it downstairs. However, Alta is against the idea. He points a gun at Reaper, using him as a human shield to get to the other side of the room. At this point, he just wants to get out alive and doesn't care if he has to kill his teammates for it. They soon come across an enemy, and Reaper runs out of ammo. At last, he is shot and killed, while Alta runs away from behind him. In hiding, he cannot help but cry at the person he is turning into, but it doesn't end his will to live. Soon, the others arrive, having completed the upper 2 levels. They find Reaper's body, but have no clue that his death was Alta's fault. They get in position before killing the rest of the 3rd floor enemies. Taylor goes into the medical room to look for more medikits and finds one. However, Alta arrives there at the same time and tries to take it from her. When the two get into a fight, he kills Taylor and walks away without feeling an ounce of regret. Minutes later, Cox runs into Alta and comforts him, thinking that he feels bad about his friend's death. But then he finds Taylor's dead body and Alta's name written on the wall with her blood. Upon finding out that he is the killer, Cox attacks attacks the guy and the two get into a fight. At one point, Cox hits Alta with a fire extinguisher, which makes the captain believe that Alta is trying to take his helmet off because they had already been warned. Alta is attacked and strangled to death as punishments. Now only Cox, Mustang, and the Chief are left out of all 8 players. They gear up and run down to the first floor, finally reaching the parking lot. It is filled with enemies who fire at them repeatedly. As the group bravely moves forward, Cox is shot. He has a medikit to save himself, but before he uses it, he sees Mustang being shot as well. Cox doesn't even think before using the last kit on her and dying himself in her place. With only seconds left before the explosive goes off, the Chief runs towards it and shuts it down at the last second. The helmets stop working, and the two are transported back to the White Room. The Chief is suddenly surrounded by a group of soldiers, but doesn't seem surprised. This is when we find out that he is the organizer of the game, who plays with people's lives for fun. Before Mustang can react, she is sedated and taken away. We see the data about the dead players being permanently deleted to get rid of the evidence of their death. The scene changes to the actual parking lot of the building. Mustang lies unconscious as the dead bodies of her friends are put in body bags to be disposed of. When she wakes up, the Chief stands in front of her with a bag full of prize money. He wants her to forget about what happened and enjoy life as he does. All she has to do is promise to keep everything a secret, and she will be sedated again and taken home. Surprisingly enough, Mustang agrees and wishes him goodbye. A man then comes to sedate her again, but Mustang takes him by surprise and fights back. She eventually overpowers him and shoots out the lights, making the place pitch black. Taking advantage of the darkness, she kills all of the Chief's men, leaving him with no backup. In a final showdown, she throws the bag at the Chief, not wanting to use the money that caused so many deaths. At last, she walks out of the building, being the only person who makes it out alive from the game. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching. The movie begins as we are introduced to a new horror game called Stay Alive. This game is still under beta testing stage, so the company has asked a lot of people to test the game, one of whom is a guy named Loomis. In the game, he expertly kills a lot of enemies and moves on to the next stage, which is a haunted mansion. The place is riddled with several spirits, but most of them are harmless. However, when Loomis's character climbs up the stairs, a woman in red suddenly attacks him from behind and hangs him from the ceiling. After the game is over, Loomis becomes upset that he couldn't win, but fear and adrenaline also runs through his veins, as he hasn't played such a realistic game in a long time. Later, he calls his childhood friend Hutch and invites him to his place to play with him. However, Hutch says he can't make it, so they agree to see each other later that weekend. Afterwards, Loomis hears a sound from upstairs and goes to check what it is, but it is just his buddy Rex and his girlfriend Sarah having fun. Shortly after, Loomis falls asleep, but is soon woken up by a nightmare. Unable to sleep, he goes downstairs to drink a glass of milk. Out of the blue, a shadow appears in front of him, which sends Loomis running upstairs. To his horror, he finds Rex and Sarah brutally killed in their room. Suddenly, a chain wraps around Loomis's neck, and he is hanged to death, which is exactly the same way his character died in the game. The next day, Loomis's friend Hutch is seen at his workplace. His boss, Miller, calls him into his office with a very serious look. Hutch is afraid that he's going to get scolded, but to his surprise, Miller simply asks for advice on the new video game he's bought. This implies that he's also an avid gamer. Gamer bosses are the best bosses. Afterwards, Hutch learns about the death of Loomis and his friends, which sends him into a state of shock. The next day, he attends the funeral and gives his condolences to the bereaved families. As Hutch reminisces about the good times spent with his friends, Loomis's sister walks up to him and hands him a bag containing her late brother's video games. She says that her parents wouldn't allow her to play the games and that Loomis would want Hutch to have them. Shortly after, Hutch also meets the deceased girl, Sarah's best friend, Abigail. She empathizes with him and gives him her number, mentioning that he can call her if he needs someone to talk to. Oh, you don't say. After the funeral, Hutch visits his friend October and her brother Phineas. October comforts Hutch and helps him grieve, while Phineas makes light of the situation. Moments later, Phineas finds the Stay Alive game in the bag, and Hutch reveals that it was the same game Loomis was playing the night he died. He also adds that Loomis had invited him to play with him, which he refused. After hearing everything, Phineas becomes eager to play the game, but Hutch thinks it's inappropriate. However, However, when a stubborn Phineas asserts that it could be a tribute to their late friend, he agrees. Later that day, several other players arrive at Hutch's house, including his other friend, Swink, and the girl from the funeral, Abigail. Phineas and his sister October are also there. After they set up all the devices and boot up the game, Hutch's boss Miller joins them online from his office. Before the game starts, a strange prayer appears on the screen, and they are instructed to read it to start the game. The group naively obliges, and after they finish reciting the prayer, the game tells them that they have made a grave mistake, and they will die for it. However, Hutch and his friends aren't fazed by the threat, and they proceed to choose their avatars. In the game, the players must uncover the horrible truth of a place named the Garouge Plantation. In order to win, the players have to defeat ghosts and demons, including the main villainess, Countess Elizabeth. The players may also use a rose to escape ghosts that they can't defeat. October remembers hearing about the story of the Countess, but she isn't able to recall the exact details. Soon, the game begins, and as the others get busy killing demons, Miller makes his way into a mausoleum. Inside, he explores the tunnels. He also runs out of roses and soon stumbles upon a torture chamber. Just as Miller relays the information back to his teammates, the Countess of the plantation suddenly appears behind him and stabs his character in the neck to death. Soon October gets bored of the game and convinces everyone to log off and call it a night. Then all of them return to their respective homes. Meanwhile, Miller, who is still at his office, sees a dark figure running outside. Brushing it aside, he closes his office and proceeds to walk away. But suddenly, the main door mysteriously opens again. Puzzled, he returns to inspect and notices a controller laying on the floor. Suddenly, the Countess from the video game appears in real life and attacks Miller. She kills him by stabbing him in the neck, and he dies in the same way his character died in the game. And people say the rapid evolution of AI art isn't scary. The next day, Hutch arrives at work and becomes horrified to learn that his boss has died. Two detectives, Thibodeau and King, investigate the case and interrogate all the employees. When it's Hutch's turn, he reveals that Miller was playing an online game with him and his friends right before he died. Hearing this, King starts to suspect Hutch, as he lives awfully near the office. That evening, the group again gathers at Hutch's place to discuss the incident. Everyone is shocked by Miller's death, but Phineas just wants to continue with the game. This pisses off the rest of the group, prompting them to leave the room. Outside, they discuss Miller's death, and Hutch notes that he died the same way his character did. With this theory, he presumes that Loomis's death also had something to do with the game. Hence, the group suddenly grows worried for Phineas and returns inside to check up on him. Fortunately, the nerd is just smoking, and it is revealed that he was about to die in the game, but he paused it in the nick of time. Later, everyone that played the game begins to experience visions and see horrific scenes. Searching for answers, Hutch goes to his office and looks up online more information about the recent deaths. He learns that everyone, Loomis, Rex, Miller, and Sarah, died the same way their characters did in the game Stay Alive. Taken aback, he meets his friends and shares the entire ordeal with them. October believes it immediately, and she tells everyone the story of the Garouge Plantation, which she heard from her grandmother. It turns out the game is based on the real-life story of Countess Elizabeth Bathory. The Countess used to hunt for innocent victims in a black carriage and gut them with silver shears. So, as punishment for her sins, people had walled the Countess in the plantation's tower alive. The scene then cuts to Phineas, who is headed somewhere alone. As he drives, a woman suddenly appears in front of him, causing him to swerve his car violently. Fortunately, he gets out unharmed and calls his friends for help. Phineas also shares that he's been seeing and hearing creepy things lately. Hutch and the others rush to pick him up. However, before they can arrive, Phineas again starts to hear weird noises, much to his horror. Suddenly, a black carriage appears and runs him over, killing him instantly. Later, when Hutch and the others reach the place, they find Phineas's body on the road. When they check his laptop inside the car, it's revealed that even his game character had died in the same way. I don't know, guys. I think it's all a coincidence. Soon, the cops arrive and Hutch tells them about the game and its relation with the deaths of the victims. But Detective Thibodeau finds it hard to believe and instead warns Hutch against joking over such matters. Meanwhile, curious about the game, Detective King decides to give it a try, but he quickly loses and his character dies before Hutch could stop him. As the detectives leave, October and the others become determined to get to the bottom of the truth. Hutch decides to find out everything he can about the game, while October plans to look for whoever killed Phineas. Elsewhere, Detective King goes to a game shop to find more information about the game. However, he doesn't find anything, and instead, he gets brutally murdered in his car by the Countess. On the other hand, Hutch and Abigail sneak into Loomis's house to find more information about the game. There, it is revealed that Hutch spent his entire childhood living in Loomis's home because his eccentric father thought his wife was cheating on him, so so he burned down their house. Unfortunately, Hutch was the only one to survive, as his mom perished in the fire and his dad was sent to prison. Meanwhile, Swink and October are at Hutch's place reading books about the Countess and the Garouche plantation. Just then, they get a call from Hutch, and October tells him that she has found a way to defeat the Countess. All they need to do is put 3 nails through the Countess's heart, neck, and forehead to force her human spirit back into her body. October also mentions that the Countess is afraid of mirrors, and that's the only way to repel her. Seconds later, they learn from the news that Detective King is dead, and soon after, a swarm of cops show up at Hutch's place. Fortunately, Swink and October quickly pack their stuff and flee through the fire exit. After a while, all of them meet up at Loomis's house and realize the game is being played automatically on Swink's computer. They then see October's character on the screen, making them wonder where she is. At the same time, October is wandering outside the house when she sees the Countess inside an abandoned property. Determined to end the madness once and for all, she follows the devil inside. There, she picks up a nail gun and attacks the Countess when she sees her. But to her surprise, the attack doesn't work, and the Countess remains unharmed. Left with no choice, October tries to flee the property, but the Countess catches her using a shackle. She then hangs October by the ankle. Hutch and his friends hear her scream and rush inside the building to help. Unfortunately, when they arrive, it's already too late, as October has been finished off brutally. Later, the devastated group heads off to the address, where the Countess has apparently been locked. As all the friends are dying one by one, Swink figures out that one has to keep on playing, so that the others can use this distraction as an opportunity to complete their mission. In the next scene, they arrive at their location and split up. Hutch and Abigail make their way inside the mansion, while Swink stays in the van to play the game. After a while, Swink finds out that the mansion is actually the same Garouche plantation from the game, so he calls Hutch and helps him navigate through the house with the help of the game. Hutch wanders around different parts of the property, like the cemetery, and verifies that it is indeed the real Garouche plantation. Meanwhile, Abigail makes her way upstairs into a room where she finds a doll that looks exactly like the Countess. She then enters a wardrobe which leads into another part of the house. There, she sees pictures and articles about the plantation, and also finds the Countess's shears. All of a sudden, it becomes dark, and Abigail screams out loud, prompting Hutch to run back inside the house. He asks Swink where he should go, and the latter starts unlocking every door in the game for Hutch to access. This is possible because now, what happens in the game also happens in real life. Hutch eventually reaches the wardrobe where the Countess is about to kill Abigail, and in the nick of time, Swink throws roses at her in the game, causing her to vanish. Upon rescuing her, Hutch kisses Abigail, and the two have an emotional moment, and people say gamers don't get babes. Afterwards, the two listen as Swink tells them to find 3 nails and get the roses. While Swink is outside talking to Hutch, the van doors suddenly close with the computer still inside. Fortunately, right before the Countess is about to kill his character in the game, he opens the door and saves himself. Shortly after, the Countess comes for him in real life, even though his character is still alive. With no other choice, Swink runs for his life and eventually trips over a bush of roses. Meanwhile, the newly formed couple reach the van and find Swink's game character dead. Hence, they start collecting roses and nails to kill the real Countess in the tower. Suddenly, the carriage comes after them, and Hutch locks Abigail inside the room. He then uses a rose to scare the Countess away. Following this, the couple head towards the torture chamber, and then towards the tower, where the real Countess is supposedly locked. But unfortunately, the door closes itself, and Abigail gets separated from Hutch. Realizing that they don't have enough time before the spirit catches up to them, Abigail urges him to leave her and finish the mission alone. Hutch is reluctant, but after much insisting, he hands her a rose and departs. Shortly after, he reaches the top of the tower and finds the Countess's body in a coffin. Without further ado, he then starts hammering the nails into her body. Elsewhere, the Countess's spirit has captured Abigail and is about to finish her off, but before she can do so, Hutch hammers the last nail into her forehead, causing the spirit to evaporate. Thinking that the mission is finally over, Hutch prepares to leave, but unfortunately, the Countess gets up, and all the nails that were driven inside of her fall to the ground. Taken aback, Hutch grabs his reflective laptop and keeps her at bay, long enough so that he can set the room on fire. However, in the process, he also gets trapped, and is forced to relive the horrible incident he suffered as a child. But just then, Swink comes to the rescue, and saves them with the help of Abigail. It's revealed that he was never killed because of the rose bushes he fell on top of. Then the 3 friends quickly flee, while the evil Countess's body burns in the tower. A few days later, a video game shop receives a copy of the Stay Alive game, which he finds very interesting. And in no time, the store starts selling several copies of it. The movie ends as the Countess once again emerges from the tower, ready to pounce on more victims. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching. In the year 2800, two astronauts from Earth, Adam and Jake, are seen in their spaceship. They are flying to a planet named Antares, which is rumored to have a large settlement of humans. It turns out that a deadly virus has left women back on Earth completely barren, so the two astronauts are the only hope left for humanity. Their mission is to venture to Antares, find some women, and convince them to travel to Earth for the boys. Shortly after, when the spaceship nears Antares, it suddenly becomes unstable due to the strange gravitational pull there. Adam and Jake try their best to regain control of the ship, and to some extent they do, but it still ends up crashing on the surface. Both the astronauts sustain minor injuries, but Jake comes off the worst of it. Adam quickly escorts him out before the smoke inside suffocates them. Then we are shown an aerial shot of the planet, Antares. It is a barren wasteland that has large formations of rocks everywhere, with no signs of vegetation. Meanwhile, Adam operates on Jake's wounds and injects him with a futuristic syringe that heals him automatically. As the two are conversing, suddenly, a dog's barking is heard. Up until now, they had believed that life on the planet was just a rumor, but with the bark, they get renewed motivation, and Adam starts following the sound. After a bit of wandering around, he comes across a primitive-looking boy, clutching his dog with a worried look. Adam tries to get near him, but the scared boy says the snakeheads are near, and runs away. Unfortunately, just after a few minutes, he is captured by the snakeheads, who appear to actually be women clad in primitive military costumes. They quickly knock the little boy out and take him into custody, while his dog runs away. On the other hand, Adam is inspecting the strange place when a massive earthquake rocks him. Scared, he immediately calls Jake via his high-tech watch and asks him to take a geoscan of the area. Following this, Adam ventures further deep into the land until he comes across a large temple. He covertly sneaks inside and is taken aback to witness a large number of women there. It turns out that on this planet, women rule everything, while men are forced to become slaves, and a few of them are used to procreate. Inside the temple, the women appear to be chanting some prayers for their serpent lord. Here, we get to know that the religious women belong to a cult, which is led by the fearless Taxan. Right then, the serpent lord also appears from the ground, which is a gigantic cobra. We are then introduced to the queen of planet Antares, Sumuru, who seems to be less than impressed by the cult's work. Meanwhile, the little boy from earlier is brought to the room. As Adam watches with shock and horror, Taxan reveals that the boy is about to be sacrificed to the Serpent Lord. Hearing this, the boy's sister Dove, who happens to be one of the Queen's soldiers, starts fighting with Taxan's cult members. Here it is revealed that the women inside the temple are divided into two factions, one that works for Taxan and the other that follows the Queen. As everyone watches on, Dove continues fighting alone, and suddenly, the Serpent Lord swoops down and gobbles up one of the cult members. An enraged Taxan orders her women to capture Dove, but the Queen stops them, claiming it was just self-defense. The two leaders almost get into an argument of their own, but just then, Adam, who has been hiding in a corner, gets a call from his friend, which alerts everyone in the room. Taxan immediately orders her soldiers to go after him, but Adam uses one of his high-end guns to create a diversion and flee. During the chaos, the little boy, Will, also manages to escape from the temple. After a while, Adam and the little boy catch up and head to the spaceship to escape this planet. However, before Adam can enter, he is shot in the leg by one of Taxan's women. Still, with the help of Jake and the boy, he manages to get inside the spaceship, but the arrow appears to be poisoned, causing him to slowly lose consciousness. Outside, the Queen arrives with her own army and tells Taxan's cult gang to go away. At first, they refuse to comply, claiming that it is perfectly legal for women to kill men, but when Sumuru asserts that she is the Queen and that she has jurisdiction over everything, they reluctantly leave. Following this, the Queen enters the spaceship and confronts the aliens. She then takes out an anti-venom and injects it in Adam, hence saving his life. In the next scene, Adam and Jake are brought to the Queen's residence, where they manage to meet up privately. Jake reveals that according to the geoscans he conducted earlier, he found out that the planet is dying, and that is why the earthquakes are so frequent. At max, the planet has 2 months before it ultimately self-destructs. Later, Adam is taken to the Queen's chamber for interrogation. He introduces himself and mentions that he is from planet Earth. He also claims that the people on Antares are descendants from Earth, as some people were sent on a terraforming mission 1,000 years back. They regularly report reported their findings for the first 100 years, but after that, all communications ceased. The Earth also went through a deadly war, and that is why they didn't try to find out much about their people on Antares. Hearing all of this, the Queen is taken aback, but she nonetheless supports the claims, as their legend mentions of a planet called Earth. As the two continue talking, the topic of the snake cult comes up. Queen Sumeru reveals that due to the continuous earthquakes, the people reverted to religion, and that is when Taxan rose to power. She comes from an extremely noble family, and believed that she was destined to become the queen. However, the people didn't elect her. This is why she has been gathering cult followers so that one day she can take the throne for herself. As for the large cobra, it just appeared out of nowhere. Shocked by the revelations, Adam tries to explain that the planet is dying and that everyone should immediately evacuate, but the queen doesn't want to listen to a man. Instead, she starts talking about why men are dominated on Antares. She reveals that long ago, the men ignited a large flash of light, which killed a lot of people. From that day onwards, the women have taken control over the land, and it is perfectly legal to kill men if they are found to be disobedient. Shortly after, the queen leads Adam to a primitive mine, where all the men are working as laborers. According to the queen, men are either used as slaves, for sacrifices, or occasionally used to procreate. The sight disgusts Adam, but when he tries to speak out his thoughts, he is beaten up and taken away. Unfortunately, while the guards are escorting him back to the queen's residence, they are attacked by Taxan's gang. The notorious cult members slay all of the queen's guards and apprehend Adam. Sadly, among the casualties is also Dove. As she breathes her last, her brother Will arrives to help her, but it is too late. Meanwhile, Adam is brought to Taxan's chambers, where the Serpent Queen asks him to join their cause. She even kisses him passionately to seduce him into their team. However, Adam, being the wise guy that he is, refuses straight away. "I'm an astronaut, lady, not a simp." This causes an altercation between the two, but before Adam can get hurt, the Queen, Jake, and Will, disguised as guards, come to his rescue. Taxan tries to fight back, but the Queen knocks her out with a single punch before leaving. On their way out through the tunnels, the astronauts discuss the state of the planet, and Jake reveals that they have less time than he had guessed earlier. According to his recent calculations, Antares may blow up in a matter of days. The Queen overhears their conversation and brings out her locket, which has a special kind of element in it. It turns out that the element is extracted from a place called the Burn Zone, which is the same spot that the spaceship from Earth landed 1,000 years ago. Hearing this, the astronauts get excited, because if they can somehow reach the place and restart the ship, they can head back to Earth. The Queen also agrees to help them, and together, they start marching towards the Burn Zone. Along the way, they evade several of Taxan's goons, and also manage to free some men who were locked up as slaves. Once they finally reach outside, Queen Sumeru tells the astronauts that they still have to travel several kilometers, as the Burn Zone is located behind a large hill. Despite the challenges, and the Serpent Group hot on their tails, Jake and Adam decide to continue their journey. Shortly after, Adam tries convincing the Queen to come along with them, mentioning that it's much safer up there on Earth. However, she politely declines, asserting that she doesn't rule the people, but serves them, which I guess means that she should let them all die. Just then, a massive earthquake hits, which causes the group to tumble down. With this, Jake deduces that the planet's impending doom is nearing. After a while, the group comes across the skeletal remains of a man, and when Jake examines it, he learns that the man died some 900 years ago, the same year that humans came to Antares. On further inspection, he also finds out that there was a solar blast in the area, and that is why most of the men perished. Hearing this, the Queen realizes that it was the same flash of light that their ancestors witnessed centuries ago. Since the light was caused by natural causes, the men were innocent after all. Hence, all these years, their religion, which stated that men are dangerous and evil, was built upon a lie. The revelation devastates the Queen, but the boys tell her to keep moving, as they don't have much time left. In the next scene, the group finally arrives outside the Burn Zone, which appears to be a huge space dome. Jake and little Will try to restart the engine from the control room, while Adam and the Queen head to another room to engineer the controls from there. After a lot of struggle, the astronauts manage to reignite the engine, but unfortunately, Taxan and her goons also show up. A deadly battle ensues between the two parties, but Adam, with the high-end gadgets, manages to blow up most of the evil women. Now, only Taxan is remaining, but she challenges the Queen to a fair one-on-one combat, to which the latter agrees. At first, the two are equally matched, but soon, using her impressive combat techniques, the Queen gains the upper hand. Realizing that she is about to lose, the evil Taxan takes out her knife and lunges forward to attack. But once again, the Queen easily counters. After beating up the Serpent Queen for a while, the Queen throws her against a generator, electrocuting her to a pulp. Still, the resilient Taxan is unwilling to give up, and she charges at the Queen with her knife. But this time, Adam fires at her and finishes her once and for all.
At the end of the day, men and guns have their way. Hell yeah, amen, brother.
Back in the control room, Jake has managed to start the spaceship, and it is now ready for takeoff. After learning that men are not responsible for any of the atrocities on Antares, and that the planet is dying, the Queen also decides to join Jake, Adam, and Will in their journey to the Earth. Soon, the spaceship takes off and flies into the air. All the people of Antares, the men, the Queen's soldiers, and even Taxan's cult members gaze at the large spaceship in awe. Seeing them without their leader, Adam feels bad and suggests that they bring everyone inside the ship, as it has enough space for 500 people. Jake tries to assert that the violent earthquakes can destroy the ship, but Adam and the Queen are willing to take their chances. Left with no choice, Jake obliges to the orders and starts descending the spaceship. Soon, they arrive on the surface, and the people are awestruck to witness the large structure, which they previously called the burn zone. The Queen Sumeru steps out and orders everyone to get inside, mentioning that their planet is about to die, so that they are venturing into a far-away planet. The planet will have several other people, where there is no disparity in gender, race, or religion. Oh, I guess they're not talking about Earth after all. Hearing this, the people become excited, and they immediately enter the ship. However, before Jake and Adam can pilot the spaceship away from the planet, a massive earthquake rocks everyone. When they look outside, they notice the giant serpent attacking one of the ship's propellers. With time running out, Adam orders Jake to apply full throttle on the propeller, and fortunately, as soon as he does so, the serpent backs off because of the fire released from the propeller. With this, the spaceship finally takes off and leaves planet Antares forever. In the final scene, a woman enters the control room and hands little Will his lost dog. Apparently, the dog was saved by the woman, who also hid it from Taxan. The movie ends as everyone inside the control room plays with the puppy, while the spaceship blasts off to Earth. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.